I have a confession to make. Now, there's a phrase you don't often hear in a UU church. But I must tell you about, well, it's not exactly a sin. There's no proscription against it, no law forbidding it, no rule against it, but many might consider it a bad thing nonetheless. I didn't say that. Anyone who knows me knows I have a penchant for puns. I love to play with the English language. For example, I will tell you that it's raining cats and dogs. Be careful not to step in a poodle. See what I did there? It's a pun. So the crime against humanity, I confess to you today, is that thanks to the word-wrangling tendency of mine, my beautiful wife now messes with English as much as I do. For example, if I tell her I plan to have lunch, she will ask me, why just half? Why not eat the whole thing? Or maybe I will tell her that I fall in love with her every day, and she'll say she's never seen me fall. I will explain that it's an expression, an idiom, and then she will hardly agree with me that I'm an idiot. The really cool thing about her messing with the English language is the fact that English is not her first language. It's not even her second language. Her first language, what she calls her mother tongue, is called Kikuyu. Her second language is Swahili. So, who would love to meet my wife, the love of my life? Wow. That's better.
This is cutting out a lot. Do you mind?
I got to move around.
I'm sorry. Can everybody else is noticing the cutting out?
Yeah, let me try and get closer to the mic. It's tough to juggle two different things. Well, we got to have the Zoom people here too. So we're trying to improve. Boy, that's going bad. Let me try the other mic. Oh well, let's try this again. I can hold the mic and follow you around. As much as I would like to have a beautiful woman following me around, my wife might object. Well, anyway, sadly, this picture is all I can share with you today. See, as I will mention later, my wife and I are opposites. She's very private, and I like to be on stage. Also, she simply couldn't be here today. However, I still want a language lesson from her family, so I'd like to introduce her sister's husband, Afontis. But to bring him up on stage, we need to extend a Kikuyu request. The Kikuyu word for come is oka. Everybody shout out, oka. Oka, Afontis. Let's see if this microphone is going to work for you.
Hi, everyone.
How are you today, Afontis?
Doing well.
Can you say something in Swahili for us?
Hey, jina langu ni Ephantas Gitau Muchoki.
And what does that mean exactly?
That means my names are Ephantas Gitau Muchoki, but popularly known as Effie. I know, let me say one thing. Probably you know this. Mambo Jambo. That's Swahili. Did you know that? Probably not. So Mambo in Swahili means, how are you? Jambo means hi. Did you know that? Probably not.
I'm going to get to part of that in a moment, as a matter of fact.
Okay, right.
All right. So one final Swahili lesson. Nope, I'm getting ahead of myself. Now, as it happens, my mother-in-law is also here today. She and I have kind of a special word, and a common Swahili greeting is, as he's just mentioned, jambo, which basically translates to hello. Every time we see each other, my mother-in-law say Jumbo to each other. So everyone, please shout out, Jumbo. Jumbo. Oka, Mom.
Okahaha.
Come on up, Mom. Come on up. All right, Mom, is there something you would like to say to everyone in Kikuyu?
Ma'am, hena ũndũ ũrenda kuga na Gĩkũyũ.
Ndaumire Kenya, ndokire gũkũ. I came. My name is. Marĩtwa makwa nĩ Caroline Jerry Kabia.
Fontes, can you translate?
Okay, she says, my name's Caroline Jerry Kabia.
Excellent. I've got one final Swahili lesson for all of you. To say thank you, you say asante or asante sana, which is thank you very much. To say you're welcome, it's karibu or karibu sana. Will everyone please say thank you?
Good
Excellent.
job.
Thank you very much. Is that it? That's it. All right, back to English, which I once heard described as three languages sitting on each other's shoulders wearing a trench coat and stealing loose grammar and idioms from other languages as they pass by. In short, English is a little weird. To demonstrate just how weird it is, I'm going to introduce you to a nonsense word. Now, looking at this word, and by the way, if you've seen this word before, please don't give it away. Among those of you who have not seen this word, who is willing to take a stab at how it's pronounced? Anyone? Goatee. That makes sense. You have GHO. Next slide. You got GHO and T from ghost and the I from curious. Moving on. Oh, too far. Well, anyway. So that's perfectly acceptable, but there are two other ways to look at this collection of letters. What if we take the GH from tough, and then we take the O from women? And finally, we take the TI from notion. Now it spells fish. But wait, there's more. Supposing we take the GH from though. What does GH sound like in though? That's right, it's silent. Now we'll borrow the O from people, which sounds like nothing. If the T comes from ballet, well, we found another silent letter. And then we finish with the I from business, and we have a completely silent word. Based on all of this collected evidence, I think this combination of letters is a bad word. Speaking of tough and though, here are three nearly identical words which should rhyme but do not. There we go. Three words. That's the next set. Anyway, on the other hand, here are two radically different words which should not rhyme but do. What madness led to G and A being pronounced as knee? The answer is simple. Three languages sitting on each other's shoulders wearing a trench coat. Baloney is clearly a bad word. While on the subject of rhymes, let's catch up with the times. Rhyming can be fun, poetry under the sun. In writing poetry or a song, if we bravely dare, we can make up words and no one will care. I have heard others say nothing rhymes with orange, but such naysayers won't eat the right kind of porridge. I might add, for the sake of posterity, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. How many of you immediately thought, though the sound of it is really quite atrocious? That's the thing about effective language. It creates associations. In addition to the follow-up line, many of you probably pictured Julie Andrews and Dick Van Dyke, both of whom made their living from language. If I say joy to the world, how many of you think all the boys and girls? How many of you thought of the Christmas song? See, we get an even division there. Of course, language goes beyond the spoken or written word. We can also communicate with hand signs. Why, just the other day I gave someone a peace sign, half of which they returned. They said I was number one. Shame on you if you thought they returned the other half. I admit I don't know much sign language. I can say okay. I can give a thumbs up for approval or a thumbs down for disapproval. I can say I love you. Mostly I prefer I really love you. It's a little tricky to cross those fingers. I am also fond of the Vulcan greeting from Star Trek, which means live long and prosper. In fact, whenever I greet the Zoom audience, I use the Vulcan method. This is where I was really supposed to start to wander. Dang, Mike. By the way, okay started as a joke in the 1830s in Boston, an intentional misspelling the phrase, all correct. It became all correct. People, being who we are, soon shortened it to the initials, and okay was born. This makes a nice segue into modern language. Text messages have led many to speak in acronyms like LOL or OMG. I've heard people do this, and it seems likely one of these acronyms will work its way into our language as pronounceable words the same way OK did. I have heard people say they lolled at something instead of saying they laughed. The written word, meanwhile, seems to have come full circle. Some of the earliest writing is hieroglyphs. And now, well, we call them emojis. But it's still a picturesque language. Honestly, I don't see much difference. Then there's humor. I know something about that, which is a built-in aspect of language. Homonyms, synonyms, and extrapolations that bring about an amusing surprise when put together in the right way. Often, we have a combination of letters which form different words spelled the same way, like read and read, which are kind of different versions of the same word. But here are some examples. My mortgage is sad because it's all alone. A bathroom in Waterloo exploded. Witnesses say it was linoleum blown apart. I have a stepladder at home. I never knew my real ladder. Here's one Reverend Ron would probably appreciate with his donut communion. If you dig a hole, but then you put some of the dirt back, you still have a whole hole. You can't have half a hole. It's either a whole hole or not a hole. Maybe that's wholly inappropriate. Music, which I mentioned earlier, is a very special language. It can convey meaning, emotion, and even conjure up interesting imagery. It does this with or without words. I have music in my playlist which have words in Japanese, which I don't know, or Spanish, which I don't remember very well. But the music still sends a message to me. The Japanese songs come from my favorite anime movies, so it makes me think about the images in those movies. Some years ago, I saw an interesting video which demonstrated the power of music. The camera was focused on a baby while their mother sang to it. Now, obviously, as a baby, they didn't understand the language. They didn't know the words. They did not know what their mother was singing. But they still started to cry. And they didn't know why. It was a sad little song. The child, nonetheless, could not help but feel the emotion contained within the music. Think about the songs we've heard today. We opened with the silliest of songs. Thank you, Laura. I'm my own grandpa. Biologically, this isn't possible. But with language, it can certainly happen. It can happen just the way the song describes it. Later, we heard Flowers Are Red by the late, great Harry Chapin. The lyrics tell the sad story of a young boy whose creativity is discouraged and then crushed by a teacher who insists flowers are red and green leaves are green, and there's no reason to see flowers any other way than the way they always have been seen. So language is powerful. I'll borrow an old phrase and flip its meaning around. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can really do some damage. Small changes in what you say can make a huge difference. If I look at my wife and tell her, I think you're very smart, it will make her feel good, and it is a good compliment. On the other hand, if I tell her, I think you're smart for a woman, a mere trio of words transforms the statement into a misogynistic insult to women more than a compliment to her. That's why it's important to pay a lot of attention to our language. Think before you speak is a wise expression, and it is a philosophy I try to follow. Think about the language of our culture, and then think about changing it. In technology, a white hat hacker is a person who infiltrates computer systems so they can tell where the vulnerabilities are and then fix them. A black hat hacker infiltrates the system to exploit the same vulnerabilities for personal or political gain. But why is white good and black bad? This is pervasive throughout our culture. We might say it's a dark day when, and then list something we don't want to see happen. We have adopted the eighth principle in part to fight this kind of language. The problem is the terminology is deeply embedded in our language. I like to say that my wife and I are opposites. She's a tall, skinny black woman. I'm a short, fat white guy. But the fact is, while it's a funny sounding observation, only 3/4 of it is true. She is brown-skinned, and my skin is kind of a shade of peach. These colors are not, by any stretch of the imagination, opposites. It is, after a fashion, a question of the chicken and the egg. Which came first, the association of black to bad, or of brown skin to black? More importantly, how do we change these associations? Therein lies an immense challenge, but we do have a tiny advantage. Most languages are living things. Meanings and usages change over time. When I was growing up, I was adamantly told that ain't a word. But now, ain't is in the dictionary. Once upon a time, gay meant happy. Now it has a completely different meaning. I'm reminded of a song from the revolutionary days of our country. In the mid-1700s, the word dandy generally referred to a homosexual person, and the British used it as an insult. But we rebels embraced it and proudly called ourselves Yankee Doodle Dandies and changed its meaning. My point is that we can change language. We can change the terms. We can change the meanings. We can work toward a happier, more equitable place to live in. Already, brown-skinned people are referred to as, brown-skinned people instead of black. We Unitarian Universalists respect the inherent worth and dignity of people by using their correct pronouns. It is an evolutionary change. Evolution is an often poorly used term, which means change over time. Most people think of biological evolution, which is valid, but a living language like English is always undergoing an evolution into something else. It is a slow process, but the more people use new words or apply new meanings to old ones, the more sure the change will become. This is arguably the most important use of your voice. Once upon a time, one person said ain't for the first time. Then another person did the same thing. Now it's in fairly common use. Think about this. The brain named itself. Doesn't matter what language it is, somebody at some point said, we're going to call this a brain. And that thought came from the brain. And thus it had a name it came up with for itself. I will finish with a final joke, and I hope you don't think I've used a bad word.
Language.
I was once kidnapped by mimes, and they did unspeakable things to me.